You are listening to Ideas and Leaders podcast. I'm Elena Paweta, Executive Communication Coach and TEDx organizer. With each episode, I'll share with you communication tips and ideas from top business leaders to help you excel in your career. Welcome to the next episode of Ideas and Leaders podcast. Today, I'm speaking here with Mitchell Levy. He's a global credibility expert. He's 2 times TEDx speaker. He's an international best-selling author of over 60 books, and he's an executive coach at Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches. And today we're going to speak about credibility because Mitchell is an expert in this. Hi, Mitchell. Great to have you on Ideas and Leaders.
Elena, thanks so much for having me. I liked our pre-conversation, our green room conversation.
So yeah, now let's speak even more on the recording. So first, I wanted to ask you, as you are an expert on credibility and you wrote so many books about it, how did you become a credibility expert? So what is your story? What led you to this point where you are right now?
So I think a lot of it is just life. And so when you're thinking about, if you're listening or watching, and you're thinking about who you are today and you're authentically being you, your superpower that you're giving to the world. And by the way, if you're not giving your superpower to the world, you got to find it, whether it's speaking or whatever it is you're doing. Your superpower often emanates from, at some point in time, you had a kryptonite. You had something you overcame. And because you overcame it, you want to share that with others. I think my kryptonite was when I was younger, I noticed that there were people who spoke, when they spoke publicly, that they would say one thing, but they didn't mean it in their hearts. And I didn't realize I understood that until between 2019 and 2020. I went on a Napoleon Hill journey. I interviewed 500 thought leaders on credibility. And so there are 10 values of credibility. And one of the things I realized is there's a word that was listed twice. That word is integrity. And the integrity that people have is their external integrity. That's associated with being trusted, and the internal integrity as you get to know people. And when there's a disconnect between internal and external integrity, you are definitely not credible. And so it was spending time interviewing 500 thought leaders on credibility and now deploying credibility for the last 4 or 5 years that has really fine-tuned the thought process of what does it mean to be a credible company or a credible human.
Wow, so you interviewed 500 experts, so definitely you should be the expert of experts right now. So what did you learn when you interviewed those people? What are the main takeaways about credibility?
You know, let's look at the definition of credibility in the dictionary, and I'll show you how it's only 1/3 accurate. So if you look at the definition today, it says credibility is the quality in which you are trusted. Now, I think that's good. However, once we can do what we're doing right now, once you could Zoom with anyone, once everyone has a camera, once everyone has a microphone, there's a lot more than trust that's appropriate. And so I'm going to finish the definition. The credibility is the quality in which you're trusted, known, and liked. And so if you're going to work with somebody, whether you're hiring them or they're just part of the job, you have to like them. I guess you don't have to like them, but if you don't like them, you're going to most likely go with somebody who you do like. When it's really hard these days, as you get to know people, it's really hard these days because we have such bipolar opinions. As you get to know people, you want to make sure that they consistently are delivering what you think they're delivering, or they're consistently the person that you want them to be. And so the most important element is as you're looking at every situation, how do you build trust? How do you build them getting to know you? How do you build them getting to like you? And that's probably the most important thing I'd say. Second is credibility comes second. So what's interesting is how can you be credible? Well, you have to have clarity of who you are and how you serve your audience. You have to have that level of clarity before you can actually get credibility, right? And so what happens, I've in these interviews, there's a number of statistics that came out. One, I realized that 90% of humans are born, live, and die without ever knowing their purpose. And 98% don't have clarity. So, Elena, if you're interested, I'm happy to share the formula that somebody could use to actually have clarity.
Yes, I think it is so important. And what you're sharing, that we need to be trusted, known, and liked, especially as leaders. And I know that many leaders are listening to us. Sometimes it is challenging because we know that in business, especially, we don't have time to consciously build our credibility, to consciously build this trust. We only focus on, KPIs and work, and we never have time. So it is so important to know those tools and how we can actually achieve that. So what tips would you give to our listeners? How can they build this clarity in order to be more credible?
So, by the way, what I'm going to say is, let me answer the thing that you said that you didn't ask the question, then I'll answer the question. So, um, as you're being you, working with if you're a leader and you're working with your team, you just need to be you, right? So as in terms of being trusted, vulnerable, external integrity, authenticity, coachability, right? If you emulate those four attributes, you'll get and be more trusted. In terms of as they get to know you, if you can have the intent and commitment to do the right thing, if you show up as a servant leader, if you actually are somebody that your internal integrity and your external integrity align, you will be someone, as your people get to know you, they'll recognize it's the same as who you said you were is who you actually are. And you then become much more likable as you start sharing other people's ideas, thoughts, and actions, and you show respect. Those are the 10 values of credibility. And let's step back and focus on your question, which is, what is clarity? I've come up with a concept I call it a CPOP, your customer point of possibilities. So it's being able to articulate in less than 10 words who you serve, and from their perspective, either what pain point are they addressing or how they are overcoming, how they're reaching their state of nirvana, right? And so the thing I call that CPOP, your customer point of possibilities, is in essence where you are executing on your purpose today. So here's the formula. If you are a credible human or you're running a credible company, you are of service to others. So the first question is who? Now, when I say who, I'm looking for 1, 2, or 3 words. Lots of people come up with 10, 12 words of the plethora, the big audience they serve. We've been taught that the wider fish net we cast, the more fish we catch, but the opposite is true. The more narrow we could focus, the more people are interested in us. So first, who do you serve? And then second, from their perspective, what is the pain point that they are trying to overcome, or what is the pleasure point they want to reach? And that is something that you can articulate in less than 10 words. And when you do that and you live within the playground of your CPOP, what's interesting is people get to see you and they're seeing you execute and they're seeing you living in a way that's consistent to being of service to others. It's really powerful.
So you're saying that we need to be able to say something about ourselves in 10 words or less. Who are you? Who do you serve? What are their pain points or pleasure points? Right? So is that correct?
So it's the who you are is by who you serve,
Oh, yeah.
and either the pain or pleasure. So
Hmm.
we could work on yours, or I can give you two others if you like, just so you get examples.
Yeah. Okay. So, for example, I I'm an executive communication coach. I serve business professionals who want to communicate with more impact. Is that specific enough, or would you work on this even more?
What is there? I like that as a pleasure point. What's the pain point?
So I work with business professionals who struggle with not being clear and concise enough in their
Hmm,
communication. What would you say?
interesting. So the thing that I'd say is what we often do is we say, I work with or I serve.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to say your CPOP doesn't start with helping, serving. It doesn't, it starts with the noun, not the adjective.
Mm-hmm.
So your CPOP starts with the two words business professionals.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting is 80% of the time people pick the pain point versus the pleasure point. I loved that you jumped directly to the pleasure point. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Business professionals who want to communicate effectively. It's just the pain point is a little bit more attractive, which could be business professionals who struggle with being clear.
Mm.
One, two, three, four, five, six, 7 words. Business professionals who struggle with being clear. So
Mm-hmm.
here's what's cool. When you actually articulate the CPOP, when you're talking to either your prospect or you're talking to your referral partner, the most natural thing they're going to say is, tell me more. Now, when you actually then you could express who you are in less than a minute because you're expressing it within a container of clarity and you get incremental credibility by sharing that way. So I kind of like it. Business professionals who struggle with being clear. Huh. Pretty basic, pretty powerful.
Great, great. So which one is yours?
So the one I picked a specific vertical at the moment. It's a vertical I never thought I'd serve because there's such a big, I'll do my CPOP and tell me more. Mine is 8 words. Coaches who've created a job, not a business. So as a Marshall Goldsmith 100 coach, as someone who is exposed to a lot of coaches, I serve both coaches, consultants, small businesses where there's one or two primary rainmakers, where what they're really good is that transformation. They're really good. They've been certified to bring a company or an individual from an A to B, but what they really suck at is running a business, doing business development, getting referral partners to continually share referral business. So we have a done with you program that they actually get a coach, they actually get a mastermind, and they get leads every week. And so we help build their business. So that was about a minute. Let me give you somebody else. Now, it's interesting. It's hard for me to say just that, but that's about 80% of my business. I also do things like I do sit on boards of companies and I do executive coaching. In the executive coaching space, it's typically CEOs of companies between 5 and 100 million. So different model. But when I speak, Elena, I need to actually um, I need to actually be very focused and have clarity so that the person who could resonate either directly with me or could be a referral partner is interested in learning more.
Mm-hmm.
Let me share one more. Share one of my clients. Uh, she has she has a 5 word CPOP. Okay. Successful women drowning with regret. So I'll do her tell me more. So she was one of them. Reasonably successful, at least from the outside world, had a job, married, children, and she was miserable. And she spent years working on different tools and techniques to bring her mindset, to bring herself to the place where she was happy, and then has subsequently worked with 250 other women to do it themselves. And so that's what she does with those successful women who are drowning with regret.
Wow, that's so powerful indeed. So when you shared yours, because you spoke about coaches, I immediately could relate to it because coaching is also part of my business. So I was like, oh, it is interesting. So I think that definitely the structure that you presented, it is catchy and it helps to filter your audience immediately. So I'm sure that women who could relate to this, your client's message, they would also immediately be interested in this. So yeah, to our listeners, let's all formulate our several words, CPOP, and let's use it in our communication. So what is the next step? As we have this, we know who we are serving, we know who we are, we know what is the pain point of our customers. How can we use it? What can we do to build credibility?
So step one is clarity. Step two is showing up consistently with that level of clarity. So what does that mean when you're speaking? Just regular conversations. You are consistent in, let's just call the CPOP the playground you play in. You're consistent in the playground you play in. One of the biggest issues that if you're an entrepreneur you have is that somebody comes to you with an opportunity to make money and you go, oh yeah, I can do that. Right? But it may not be your playground. Or lots of times we've heard from and dealt with energy vampires. Someone who we know they're going to be a horrible client, but we accept them anyhow. So one is how you show up when you're interacting with somebody. But the second is there are very few people, maybe 20% of those people who are out there that once they come up with their CPOP, that their online presence is consistent with that their online presence, both, their website, their social media, makes it as clear for their audience to understand who they are in the playground they play in. And so step two is just consistently deploying their credibility. I'll give you a step three if you're open to that.
Yes, absolutely. What is the next step?
Step three is the micro commitment product, right? It's the client magnet that brings somebody in. So it could be what you're doing right now, Elena, is your micro commitment is you and I are talking, right? On a podcast, right? I get to see you, you get to see me, we get to experience each other. That is a micro commitment product. There are many different micro commitment products. Typically, in this case, I didn't pay to be on the podcast, but you're paying to have me. And by the way, thank you. I'm honored that you had me on your podcast. Typically it's something between $100 to $500. At a company, there's a client I'm working with, their micro commitment product is between 250 and 500,000. But that's an ASIC company, so a different sort of animal. What I'll say is the having something where your audience, your true client, gets to experience you in a way that is just so simple that they go, in some cases, a TEDx is almost a micro commitment, but you're not really, it's that interactive TEDx where they're actually experiencing you live and they decide they want to be involved with you. But anyhow, it's micro commitment is the third thing you're focused on. And I'll give you a fourth.
Yeah.
This is something we all talk about, but none of us, not many people, do it extremely well. There are probably some, and that is community. If you have a playground you play in, you want to be the community superhero. You want to be that person that invites people into the playground. You want to be that person who has referral partners and customer referrals, and you're helping others be successful in that playground, whether or not you're making money directly. It's basically your role is to have a group of people around you who care about you. And that's what's called a community.
Okay, so we need to have clarity, then we need to have consistency and to communicate our main message to our clients, right? To people who we want to serve. Then we need to have this micro commitment and to show up to get to know our clients better so that they get to know us better, and community. I really like all those steps. Is there anything else to this?
It's a circular motion because what happens is our clients will change because the environment change and we change. So there's always an adjustment at some point in time to who you are and how you show up because your clients are changing, so you need to change with them.
Yes, absolutely.
And so that circular keeps going around.
Yeah, it changes all the time. Then we need to readjust our main message and the people that we are addressing, right? So this clarity element also is changing all the time. Yeah, so I think that those are very important steps. So thank you for sharing them. And now I wanted to also ask you a couple of practical tips for our listeners. So first of all, I know that you are an author of over 60 books. You said 65. So, wow, this is really impressive, and congratulations on that. So, what would you recommend to our listeners who want to boost their credibility with writing their own book? So, what are the main steps, or how to make this process less long and painful?
So, first of all, in terms of books, I'm very, very much speaking about nonfiction books that the author themselves use as a way to establish credibility, to be able to pick up more clients or pick up more speaking or consulting engagements. Okay, so it's a very specific type of book. So if that's the book you're writing, then the first thing you say is, what's the end result? And start with the end in mind. Because if you have the end in mind, you'll stay focused on getting it done so you can actually accomplish the end, right? And what often happens is we all want to write that great book that will last forever, that gets quoted everywhere. And I'm going to say, think of that in the back of your mind as something you will do someday. That's a someday thing. In the meantime, if you need a book to open up more doors, you need to write your door opener. And when you have that in mind, you're less concerned. You don't have to get everything right. You don't need to make it super huge. You need to make an asset that is, when you speak at an event, it's an asset. It's you. It's a much more finite asset. If you write an article in a major newspaper or a major magazine, it's a finite asset. If you put a post on LinkedIn, once again, if you have a book, it lasts a little bit longer, has a little bit more longevity. However, the most important thing is that you use it effectively. Writing a book and publishing a book is only 10% of you being successful with your book. The other 90% comes with you using it effectively.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think that many people are struggling with this perfectionism. If it comes to books, then definitely that's myself. And now I'm in the process of writing my second book, and it takes such a long time. I'm trying to be perfect, and I want to have, bestseller. And but I think that it is very important what you said, that we need to focus on our short-term goals and just do it rather than plan something huge and write it for 10 years.
Elena, what's the book on, the second one you're writing?
It is on communication, effective
Of course.
communication. Yeah.
Specifically, are you anything more narrow you can narrow in on?
So it is about speaking with impact, and it is about communication, leadership communication. So how to persuade others, how to motivate others. So I'm focusing on this aspect of leadership. And this is, I got some tips from my friend who is a publisher, and she said that I need to narrow it down and to focus only on one small thing. And, I want to make something big. And I think that this is exactly what you mentioned, that I would need to kind of make several books out of this one book that I'm planning, and then it will be
That's
faster.
that's exactly what I was thinking. My suggestion would be to even narrow it down further. So what you might want to think about is think about, in the audience you're speaking to, who do you want as a client and who do you want as a referral partner? And then if you know you want this person as the certain class of people, maybe it's executive VPs, or maybe it's department chairs, or whatever it is that you want to focus on. Then you ask yourself, okay, what are their CPOPs, or what is it that they want to overcome? And then you write the book to them. I mean, specifically, you just keep them in, like, if you could put one person in your mind that is a fair average of that person, write the book to that person. As a matter of fact, you could even co-create it with them by saying, hey, tell me what's going on. If I gave you something and I talk to you every now and then, would you give me a testimonial at the end, right? And write it to that person, because what you want to be able to do is physically, so this is where we as authors make a lot of mistakes. We want our clients to buy our books. Okay, great. But that's not where you're going to make money. You're going to make money when your prospects actually hire you for the coaching and engagement and all that. So what if you, as part of your book, you made a decision that you wanted to send 250 or 500 copies of your books to your prospects? And if you have that in mind before you start, as a matter of fact, you can start building a list of who you're going to send your book to even before you start writing your book. And that will be the most effective way for you as a coach, consultant in the space that you do. The most effective thing you could do is know the audience that you're going to give your book to, and follow through. And they go, yeah, I could use some help with that.
Wow, great. That's really very good advice. Thank you for that. I will definitely use that, and I hope that our listeners will also get more clarity on their goals, what they want to achieve, and how they want to show up, and how they want to boost their credibility. So Mitchell, to sum up our conversation, what would be your top tips to leaders listening to us? How can they boost their credibility?
So one of the things that I will share is a model that I use. It's called the input-output model. And I have literally, it's a 6-minute video. And so I will put it in chat for you, and I'll share it. And at the moment, it's a community. It's free to get to the community, and that particular course is free. It's aha.pub/superheroes. So aha.pub/superheroes. It's the Clarity Superheroes community. And what happens is this course, this model, it's something I've been using since college, will help you have clarity on every situation, right? Because here's what we do. We kind of forget. We as humans, we often jump right in the middle of trying to answer a question, trying to answer a problem, trying to solve, right? Be our superhero. But we often forget about what is the real end result. What is it that we ultimately want to accomplish? And thinking about so it's called the input-output model, and it's a 6-minute course, so it's very easy to learn. So aha.pub superheroes will get you there. And then as a human, for today, you need to know the output of who you are with every engagement. And that's why you need to know your CPOP.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing this. We'll definitely put this under this episode in the show notes so that everyone can see and upload your gifts. So thank you, Mitchell. Thank you so much for being on Ideas and Leaders. It was such a pleasure talking to you about credibility. You definitely have a lot to share. So if our listeners want to reach out to you to ask you additional questions, where can they find you?
The best way is my website, which is just my name. So it's mitchelllevy.com. So it's 3 L's, MITCHELLLEVY.com. And there you could find the programs I'm running if you want. We do once a month, we do a clarity session. It's 90 minutes long. So certainly feel free to sign up for that. And if you have questions, you could book time directly on my calendar. So that's mitchelllevy.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mitchell. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for being on Ideas and Leaders.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thanks for being such a good host.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Ideas and Leaders podcast. Did you enjoy this episode? Let me know that you listened by tagging me in your LinkedIn profile and using a hashtag Ideas and Leaders. See you in the next episode.